I didn't know if
Yeah.
everybody knew that, so.
You know, we did know, but we didn't know whether it was public.
Yeah, it's been on Facebook for several months.
Yeah.
Looks like we're live.
Okay, good morning, everyone. To the 30th Judicial District Nominating Commission to pick a magistrate judge for the vacancy created by Judge Sylvester. The way that our agenda was written by me, I had us convening at 9 o'clock to take care of any business. And then the interview will start at 9:15. We only have one interview today. And we our agenda. Oh, Winnie, we're getting a little feedback. I don't know what that was. Anyway, so there's no reason really to go into executive session. So at this point, I'm going to ask Shelby to call into the conference line for any member of the public that wanted to make a comment. So, Shelby?
I will do that.
Because this is an interview, Shelby normally leaves the call open for the duration. But
choosing freeconferencecall.com.
because it's an interview, she's just going to check and see if anybody has any public comments.
Enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
And then if not, then she's going to go ahead and hang up.
If you are the host, press star now. Otherwise, please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. If you do not know your PIN, please enter pound or hash.
Shelby, it looks like you got a lot of work to do today. Files back there on that desk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I have the conference call line pulled up, Justice Standridge, and it does not appear that anybody's on the call. So I will go ahead and hang up the call for this morning's interview.
I think that's good. It's 9:05, so that gives plenty of time. Okay. At this point, you know, we'll just kind of wait. If Ms. Mathis calls in early before 9:15, then we'll go ahead and start. So we'll just start when she calls in or joins, and unless anybody has any comments, we will just have Simon. Awkward son.
Did we get anything on the guy that dropped out? Why he dropped out?
Shelby, did we get any correspondence?
We just received a letter from him withdrawing his nomination. He didn't explain why. And I thought I sent that to everybody.
Yeah. I just didn't know if there was something
No
on the line.
explanation.
I was wondering what else is done for advertising the position. I know the email goes out to all the attorneys and something's on the Judicial Council website. Is there anything else that's done?
No, I think actually this might have been before you were on the commission. One of the things that I talked about was really just talking it up in the community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't, you know, there's a press release, and so if local newspapers wanted to pull that press release, they could. But other than that, just really maybe announcements if there's a local bar association. You know, it's really, as part of the handbook, one of the things is, you know, the commission members are encouraged to really encourage people to apply. Because Anybody else?
Well, it is disheartening that the last time we had this opening, we had 3 applicants, and this time we end up with 1. It is kind of disheartening.
Right, and the interesting thing is that is Kingman bigger? You have to live in the county, right?
It was
Um,
small.
Smaller than Prod. I talked to a couple of people here in Prod, and I think they didn't want to move to Kingman. That was kind of the answer for them. No offense to Kingman, they just didn't want to move.
right.
They don't know what they're missing out on.
Yeah.
Could we have someone named Zayden?
Zayden would be
Waiting.
Rosanna's son.
Oh, okay.
Zayden is Rosanna's son, so.
Oh,
That's
Zayden
probably
is her
just-
son? Okay.
Probably just what she's using. Do you guys want to go ahead and let her in? Are
Should we
we
start
ready for
early?
her?
I think so.
Okay. Miss Mathis, if you can hear us, we don't see your picture. Oh, hi, there we do. Hi.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Fine.
I don't know if
we-
that's showing, does that show my grandson's name up there on the top?
It sure does.
I don't know
can
how to
change
change
it.
that.
I will change it.
Thank you.
That's funny. So thank you so much for accommodating us and doing this by Zoom. We really appreciate it, first of all. And we've let you in early because we didn't really have any other business. And so we thought we would get started early.
Oh, okay.
And we'll kind of begin with, in case you don't know everybody, and I actually was not available the last time, so I've never met you before. But my name is Melissa Standridge, and I am a member of the nominating commission, actually the chair in the 30th Judicial District, but I'm a non-voting.
Okay.
So I'm just basically an organizer, and I am. So I'm the liaison, the departmental justice for that area. And then I'd like to introduce you to Shelby Hardifer, who is, raise your hand, Shelby.
Good morning. How are
Sure.
you, Shelby?
Good morning.
Shelby is my judicial executive assistant,
Okay.
and none of this would happen without her. So she's the person in charge. So that's Shelby. And then with that, I'm gonna let everyone else just kind of introduce themselves and say what county they're from and whether they're an attorney or non-attorney.
Okay, thank you.
Justin, you're the next person for me. You want to start?
Good morning, I'm Justin Goodnow. I'm in Barber County and I am a non-attorney member.
Good morning, Justin.
JC.
My name is J.C. Long. I'm a resident of Wellington, Sumner County, and I'm a non-attorney member.
Good morning, Mr. Long.
Tracy.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Beverlin. I'm from Prod, and I'm an attorney member.
Good morning, Miss Beverlin.
Hannah.
Good morning. I'm Hannah Brass from Medicine Lodge. I'm an attorney member.
Good morning, Miss Brass.
Good morning. I'm Troy Durkee from Caldwell, Kansas, and I'm an attorney.
Good morning, Mr. Durking.
Lane.
Hi, Rosanna. This is Lance Dixon, non-attorney member, Kingman.
Good morning, Lance.
Greg.
Hey, Rosanna, we're probably down the street from each other.
Oh, do you really?
I work in his old office right now.
Good to see you this morning.
Thank you. Same to you.
Deb.
Good morning. I've been in front of you many times. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Mr. Philsgraf.
And Jason.
Jason Roberts, Pratt County, non-attorney member.
Good morning, Mr. Roberts.
Morning.
Okay. So with that, I think that we let you know, we normally start the interviews by giving you, the time that you need to kind of introduce yourself and maybe explain why you want the position and why you're qualified. So we'll let you start.
All right, thank you. Well, as most of you know, I probably met most of you. I'm Rosanna Mathis. I used to be a magistrate judge in the 26th Judicial District in Western Kansas, and I also served here in the 30th Judicial District for a time. When I retired 5 years ago, I basically only did that because I wanted to draw Social Security early because we don't have a long family lifeline, and I thought I wanted to get some back that I'd paid in for almost 50 years. I soon found that I didn't really care for retirement. You can only mow the yard so many times and clean the house so many times a day. So I only was non-employed for 11 months, and then I went back to work, and I've been working ever since. And I loved working in the judicial system. I think that's where I feel like I make a difference. I have missed it the whole time. I think I still have a lot to contribute to the judicial system. To me, being a judge means you should be impartial, even-tempered, be prepared and organized. And these are qualities I've had in the past, but I also realize that the judicial system is always changing. Just like we talked last time about Zoom meetings, I realize that Zoom meetings are becoming more of a thing now than they were even 5 years ago. It's not that I'm opposed to Zoom meetings. In fact, I've done meetings like this for quite a while. In Western Kansas, our juvenile detention facility was 110 miles one way. So if we had a juvenile in detention, we would do basically a video conference. It wasn't called Zoom meeting. I think that kind of threw me a little bit. We would do video conferences for first appearance and stuff instead of transporting them 220 miles a day. We also did that in Seward County a lot because you're still 60 some miles away from that. Even here, we would do care and treatment cases because patients would be sent to Larned rather than transporting them back for hearings. We would do what we call video conferencing. Also in Western Kansas, there's a diverse population. So we had to do a lot of hearings by language line for court interpreters. We would have Somalians, Vietnamese, different dialects, quiche. There was quite a few. So we did those also. In fact, we did those from the courtroom. So I know the electronics have evolved over the years. It's probably not as like what we did 20 years ago when we were doing language line. You would be able to see probably now. We didn't see the parties, we just could hear. When we did video conferences here, we actually could see the patients at the Larned State Hospital. But when I did them in Western Kansas, it was more of an audio hearing rather than a video hearing where you could see the party. When I interviewed last time, Justice Wilson asked me about living in the community. And my answer then was, I believe you should live in the community in which you serve. Since the last interview, it is a good reason why. I did not know until after my interview last time that Medicine Lodge doesn't have a jail. So obviously the no bond bench warrants that I would issue would not have been feasible there. They would not have been financially or logistically feasible at all. So that's an adjustment that I think that the court or myself would have to have made. And so I think you need to be open to changes also. And I am willing to do whatever's necessary. The 26 plus years I worked as a magistrate judge, I was always open to learning new things, to advancing, to working with the parties with me and being professional and upholding the integrity of the court.
Well, thank you. Does any commission member have any questions?
Just jump in. You kind of alluded to when you said you believe you still have a lot to contribute. I was wondering as I was reflecting on this interview, What, if anything, do you see differently now that you're in a unique position? You've had some time to step back and reflect. So what reflections would you bring back now if you were to take the bench again, if anything would change, or do you see yourself doing anything differently?
Well, I think it's different times that we live in now, even than just 5 years ago. So maybe I've become a little bit, I don't want to say I still wouldn't be, I don't want to use the word tough, but expect people to take their whatever they're before the court for seriously. But I think I have learned to not be quite as stringent, maybe is the word I'm looking for, as I had been in the past on certain things. Be open to probably more rehabilitation rather than just well, I never really ever just, I mean, I always issued harsh sentences like the maximum, but I can tell you in almost 27 years, I only had 3 people actually ever serve the maximum sentence. And that was because they had been given multiple chances before they finally just timelined their sentence. So maybe more considered of taking in views from all parties involved and meshing those together and coming up with a plan that works for everyone.
Well, I'll come in, I practiced with Rosanna many years, and her husband before that. She runs a great courtroom. I mean, if you ever got a chance to read her files, she's almost like a court stenographer in terms of what she puts in her files. How do you think, Rosanna, that she'll adapt to the e-files now? I mean, because I know you are a writer and a note taker. I know that's the thing you do a lot. I don't even know. I honestly don't know how that even works in eFlex. Do you?
Yes, we were actually using it when I was in Wellington on the child needed care cases. You could put them online and then they go into where they're still not seen by the public. And so I had started writing them on electronics there and then storing them separate so that they weren't seen by the public because those are confidential files. So we actually were doing that 5 years ago when I was in Wellington.
Time flies.
Mm-hmm. And Marilyn has already told me I had gone down there for something else to Judge D. Jarnett's swearing, and she told me that they have Odyssey where you do the notes rather than the e-file where everything else is.
In terms of our bar, I think almost every member of our bar gave you a support letter, a recommendation letter, which I think speaks to how the bar views your application. Really, the only issues we ever had is we just wanted to make sure that the Zoom hearings were possible just for economics, if nothing else, because I think every attorney on the panel here understands that there's fewer and fewer of us, and we're spread out over the judicial district, and Zoom is almost a necessity now.
Right. And that's when I said, I'm not opposed to Zoom meetings. And like I said, it has evolved since I was here before. And I know they do a lot of just I want to call them routine hearings where they're not required to drive, which is more economical for everyone. I just don't want to get to the point where, in my mind, what came up was, you have local people hiring people from Kansas City because they think they're, quote, better attorneys, and they never have to come out here. And I don't want that to affect then the local bar and the attorneys here being able, because they're just as qualified.
Yeah, they
so that was my
concern. Not show up.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't have a question, but we do our judicial education department has really expanded since you've been a member of the judiciary, and Lana Getz is our director of education, and on Zoom hearings and and on Odyssey. Those are topics that you will get extensive training on. I mean, you'll go through new judge orientation again, but those are topics that you will get specific training on those. And so if you aren't as familiar with it, you will have the opportunity to become very familiar with it. And there is an Odyssey version for judges, as you alluded to, which is different than, you know, what the public and what the lawyers can see. And there is a note-taking function in there, and you will learn, you know, how to do that.
I would also state that since I had left, one of the jobs I did do was I worked in dispatch for the sheriff's office. And so, I mean, we were just starting with computers in the courtrooms when I left. So I had a limited experience with doing things with a computer and online. But when I was dispatching, we had 6 computers that you had to control at one time. So I learned to expand a little bit on my knowledge of electronics. Not that there's still not a lot to learn, but I did have to do that. And then where I work now, we use computers for everything that we do.
I have a question. We interviewed you for the other position in Kingman, and one of the things I was kind of, I mean, I'm an old school guy, even though I'm only 47. I think pulling people's bonds and making them being held accountable is something that probably is lacking in today's world. Has your stance changed any in that regard?
The only thing that I would at this point look at differently, like I said, I think it makes a difference on where you're serving. But I'm in agreement with that. I don't understand why we let people not do what they should be doing and be held accountable. So my only stance with that would be, I know Judge Wood has talked to me about maybe not issuing a bench warrant the first time, but if they don't appear on a summons, then do another notice. If they don't show up, then do a bench warrant with no bond, not just right the first off the bat. But I have no problems if people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, having a bond revoked and then be held accountable for their actions.
Are there any other questions?
Back to,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, back to Jason's question. Mr. Philsgraf also kind of asked me that question the last time. And when I had been assigned to Wellington to the traffic, that was my policy. That's basically what I do, is issue bench warrants, because I feel like if you don't get people's attention up front, then you've lost them. I did change that while I was there because the district judges did not want me to do that. So again, if setting in Kingman, that's probably my philosophy. If I'm assigned to an outer county and the attorneys or the bar there or the prosecutor doesn't want to do that, then we would probably look at something different.
So you can change.
Reluctantly. Yes, no, I can't. I can, but I have to have a good reason to.
And I think in terms of our local bar here with the bond thing, I mean, I don't think any of us have a problem with, if people are thumbing their nose at the court, to do that. I don't think any of us have a problem with that. But it's just the first out of the chute, the no bond, you've got a no insurance, or I can't think of a good one, but and it's a no bond, and sometimes that could happen on a Saturday or Sunday or something, and it's just they forgot. I mean, that's the only ones that kind of makes us wish that it was so different. But I don't think any of us have a problem with, you don't fail to appear 2 or 3 times, or you've been out on bond before and don't show up. I don't think any of us have a problem, because trust me, we've seen the opposite of this.
Well,
one extreme to the next.
I said, honestly, though, in the past, I know when I first moved here and I was doing that, it shocked everyone in the bar. But after a while, they saw that pretty soon the word gets out pretty fast and people start showing up and you get things done and the court moves along. I did have on occasion, the county attorney would call me and say somebody got arrested, it was the weekend and it was whatever, they didn't show up, and I would go ahead and give them a bond. I didn't make them spend the night in jail.
Well, I think Greg's highlighted my concern on that. Completely agree. We don't want people to thumb their nose at the court. Having said that, first time out of the chute, particularly with indigent being the most affected by bonds, Joe Lunchpail or Sally Lunchpail loses their job, then we just don't have a domino effect. So I concur with everything Greg said, but my concern, as it was when we met last time, remains the same, that we don't hit them with a hammer first time out of the chute. After that, they're on their own. But you're saying you've evolved on that, and I accept you at your word on that. So
I've learned that's not effective in all places.
Maybe I'll add, one thing that we use a lot now in Pratt County is the use of pretrial supervision, bond supervision. I can't remember if you used that very often before, but what are your feelings on pretrial supervision?
We didn't have anyone here that was able to supervise those people. So we didn't do that. It's not that I'm not opposed. I'm definitely not opposed to it. If you have someone that is willing to do that and that does do that for you, absolutely. If that's what you've been doing and it's working, then why change it?
I'll just ask you, you've said you've spoken with Judge Wood. How do you think your relationship would be with him?
I think I actually worked with him before when he was prosecutor in Pratt, assistant prosecutor. And, I don't think two people ever always agree on everything, but we were able to talk about it and come to a resolution if we had a disagreement about something. So I think it would be the same this way here. Even though I always tell everybody I'm tough, I'm not really as mean as I tell everybody I am.
What do your grandkids think?
About?
If you're tough or not.
Here's what I'll tell you. When I was first on the bench, my youngest daughter was 5. When she got in high school, I would tell them, you better do what you're supposed to do because, everybody in town beats down the door to tell me when my kids are doing wrong, especially because I was the judge. When I came here, I had grandchildren living with me, and some of their friends would get in trouble and they're like, can you talk to your grandma for me? And they're like, no. And then they would say, if you were doing what you're supposed to be doing, she wouldn't be mean to you. And then the friends would go back and say, your grandma's mean in the courtroom. And they said, but she's nice when she's not in the courtroom. So that's what they basically would say. I don't think I'm mean. I want them to realize this is serious. If you're in court, there's a reason why, and you need to be responsible for whatever brought you here.
I have a question based on that. So, talking about juvenile cases, and it sounds like you have some experience with handling those by video conference. How do you convey the gravity of a juvenile offense to somebody who's not in court, not having to go through that experience of being there in person?
And that's why I think it's more difficult to do Zoom hearings for those types of things, because I don't think they realize the gravity of the situation, or they choose to be flippant about it. I think the only thing you can do there is your demeanor that you see on the screen, the same as they would see in the courtroom, although I still don't think it's as effective. But the juvenile cases that we did at that time were just basically first appearances or review hearings because they were in the detention center for trials, and that type of things. We would bring them back anyway. And they seem to know right away that I'm not playing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Mathis, if you want to take a moment to sum up, then that would be great.
Okay, again, I appreciate this opportunity. I was actually quite shocked when Judge Sylvester decided to retire. I am from, like I said, Southwest Kansas, and there it is and you are elected to the position. So when I first came here for retention, it was quite different. I honestly, being in both, I would prefer to be in an election district, which a lot of people are surprised about, because in an election district, if the community or are upset by something that you've done, you're kind of required to go out and talk to everybody about every 4 years to find out and get a feel of what's going on, and be able to talk to them and answer their questions and maybe explain why some things were done the way they were. And when it's retention, I think, I'm not saying for anybody else except myself, it's like, well, I don't really have to go talk to people because it's harder to replace a judge if they're in a retention district. And so you kind of, to me, would seem like you get more lax in getting the public's opinion. And with that being said, I thought a good way maybe to calibrate how well of job because you think you're doing a good job, but does the public think you're doing a good job? So I went back to 2004, because that's as far back as it went on the Kansas Secretary of State's website for elections. And there was at that time I was still being elected, and then there were 2 times that I was retained here. And I don't think this would work for like your position, Justice, because you're voted on statewide, and obviously people in Western Kansas might not know who you are, and some people just put yes, no, and always mark no. But I got 83.47% of the vote, and that's pretty high for judges. So I guess that's my way of calculating that I did a good job for the people here that I served.
Okay. All right, with that, we're gonna go ahead and have, I think Winnie will do this. I didn't introduce her because she's just a little box here. But she'll go ahead and, or you can go ahead and leave.
Okay.
And we're still live on YouTube, but
Okay.
at this point, yeah, we will go ahead and have any discussions, and then do balloting and then go from there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you. Okay. We didn't really talk about this because, I probably should have, but as far as balloting goes, normally, thank you, Winnie. Normally, it depends on what judicial district you're in, but normally people vote and then I read the votes. But some of my districts just raise their hands. Of course, we can, it ultimately, because this is an open meeting, everyone's going to know how you voted anyway at the end of the day, although they may have to make some kind of request, or we could just raise hands, or I could figure out a way that we could ballot differently. But it's good at the end of the day, it's going to be open anyway. So I will ask you, is everyone comfortable with raising their hands? And if not, so I guess if you are not comfortable with that, will you please speak up? Okay. So I'll go ahead and call for balloting. Everyone who is in favor of, and I'll remind you that this is a selection you make. So as soon as it's over, that's who the magistrate will be. This does not go to the governor. So with that said, everyone in favor of appointing Rosanna Mathis as the new Kingman County magistrate judge, please raise your hand. Okay, so Shelby, does that look like a unanimous vote to you?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Mathis will be appointed. Shelby will draft what is it called, Shelby?
Certificate of appointment.
The certificate of appointment, and as we discussed, she's going to send it to Jason as the secretary, who will sign it, and then I will sign it, and then at that point, what does happen at that point?
It goes to the Secretary of State's office.
All right, and is she appointed as of when we sign that, or when the Secretary of State files it, or?
You know, I don't know that exact
Yeah.
answer.
All right, and then the chief judge will go forward with getting her sworn in, so we can get you guys a magistrate as soon as possible, so we don't have any, I know that Judge Sylvester's last day was May 1st. So hopefully she's available to be sworn in sooner rather than later. And that you guys will not really notice any bumpiness there. Is there any other business at this point that we need to take care of before we adjourn? Well, again, thank you so much for accommodating me.